basically a 1-bar drum loop, and it's going to be a bunch of chirps with down-tempo snares, and that's all it is. So it's just continuous chirps, and then every now and then you let go and let it release so that you can have the down-tempo snare, or the kick snare pattern, the 16th note kick snare. So it's going like so. It's 3 chirps, and then kick snare, and then chirp, 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 kick snare, right? And then you start over. So then it's going chirp, 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 kick snare, chirp, 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 kick snare, like that. So it sounds very cool when you use this type of kick, because it's kind of sounds like that percolator beat, like time for the percolator, it's time for the percolator. So we'll do it with a different kick, so you'll see that it's totally different. You have a different sound. So it sounded cooler when it was on that other kick. We'll try it on another kick. Sounded interesting in that kick, but it sounded cooler on the percolator style one. So here we go. Let's try this kick. All right, sounded interesting. Still sounded better on the percolator one. Nope, sounded cooler on the percolator one. Let's try some other kicks. Alright, so it still sounded better on the percolator. So we do it with this kick. So if you're doing like the, you can also do this if you slow it down and you make your chirp slower. You can do it like a Dirty South, down tempo, super slow beat. So it's just like that. But I still like how it sounded on the percolator style one better. That kind of electronic, kind of bubbly kind of sound. And these short snares, it can sound cool too sometimes, and I think this one might sound cool. So you see how with chirping you can modulate it a lot, especially when you have a really short sound and the things can move in different ways, and sometimes you'll hear more of the backward sound of the chirp more, or sometimes you hear just the forward one more, or sometimes it'll just turn into stabs. If you mess up on a chirp, your chirp is going to turn into stabs. So here's the stab version of that, just going. So you can see, so it's the same number of clicks. The pattern is the same, it's just the clicks are shifted in a different place. Because if you put it in a different place, then it becomes chirps. But if you put it in a different place, it's basically just becoming stabs. So, or, see? So it's the same thing. So this is, or, whoops. So that's the same thing. So it's using chirps. So we're gonna do that again. So. Alright, so I'm going to go faster now. Alright, so let's go back to another sound. No, not that one. Let's try this sound. Alright, back to where we started. So this one, so we went through all those different ones. The electronic one I think sounds the best, if you notice. It's just a lot more cleaner and crisper. It just has that kind of... So like that. So here we go. So see how much clearer it is than the other ones? Because the other ones sometimes, you know, since it's a real live drummer, you're not hearing all the sound. But this, every time you move it back and forth, you're hearing something in different ways. You can freak it. You're always hearing something. So it's a lot more interesting, I think. So that's why I chose this sound to basically be the focus of this tutorial. But we just went through some other different ones. So it's just we're gonna do that again. So chirp, 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 kick snare, chirp, 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 kick snare. So 1, 2, 3, kick snare. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, kick snare. So there's 3 chirps in the first one and then 5 chirps in the second one. So it's basically like 8 chirps all together and then 2 releases. So it's basically going. And, you know, that release, when you have a kick snare release, that's going to be pretty much the speed of your song. I mean, of whatever your loop is. Whatever that kick snare release is. Because what you see before, sometimes when I was going slow, I was kind of putting a tear in between it, like a little pause, just so the beat, so the kick snare wasn't kind of off beat. Because the kick snare pattern has a set speed to it when it's kick snare. You know, whatever that is, you can change it with, you know, your pitch control. You can, you know, make the kick snare faster or slower, but that's going to be your main, you know, non-double time beat, like you're like that. So it's just like so. All right, so you need to master that type of thing first before you can even do this. This is more for an advanced, a little bit more. This is kind of advanced technique because you have to be able to chirp continuously and you have to be able to do the snare. So so we're just going to do that again. So like, all right, so notice how I did it only a stab on that first one. That first one wasn't a full chirp. You just heard like that. You didn't hear the pullback. Because sometimes if you're going really fast, sometimes you might, you know, modulating, and sometimes your chirps will turn into stabs, or sometimes your stabs will turn into chirps. Or sometimes your chirps will turn into, you know, like you hear the backwards stab, you hear it backwards, you know. And I love the sound of chirps, all the different sounds of chirps, you know, because a lot of times people just try to do just the main style, which is just, which sounds a lot like a rub, which sounds like, and here's how the same pattern sounds, but just with the rub. So like, so it's going. See how it's different, but you know, when you're just doing the chirps, it's going like that. That's like the regular style chirp. But you know, sometimes you'll see that I'm gonna start drumming with it, and you'll see there's just a lot of variations. All right, so it's going like this. So that's that. So it's going. So I'm gonna go slower at first. I'm gonna go slow and then I'm gonna speed up. So it's gonna go. I'll go really fast. So you see how that one had a lot more funk to it, because the last one I just did had a lot more funk because it was just like it's just my hands moving. This right hand's moving in some different ways where you're just getting some different types of inflections, and it doesn't have to be the same chirp looped over and over and over. Because then it can just sound kind of generic when it's just like like that, like when I was just going. So yeah, it's like that. So now we're going to go faster. You heard on that one, you heard some of the backwards stress chirps. It was a chirp, but it was had more of a backwards stress. So you're hearing the backwards stab more. So like the reverse stab. So. So, we'll do that again. So you notice I'm not letting go of it, of the record, because I want it to go at the slow speed so I don't have to do a tear in it. Alright? And I was just making some curry stew. You see I got some like turmeric and curry sauce in my hands. So it's going chirp, 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 release, chirp, 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 release. So, all right. So we're gonna go walk through this slowly. So it's gonna go chirp, 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 release, chirp, 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 release. So it's chirp, 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 release, chirp, 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 release, and that releases the kick snare. So it's chirp, 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 release. Chirp, 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 release. So, alright, like that. So, chirp, 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 release. Chirp, 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 release. So. So you see that last one, I didn't do as many chirps and I just had extra space. It was like diva 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 do, you know. So here it goes. See, I did the same thing in that one. But basically, it's just doing continuous chirps with a release. So. Alright, so let's hear that same pattern and some other sounds. Try some other kicks and snares and see what it sounds like. So that one has like a big, like a ride hat opening, but it just doesn't sound as good as that percolator kind of sound. So this is going to... do it fast. So that was like the slow down tempo one, like diva 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 do ch, diva 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 do do cheap. Now we're gonna do the fast chirp. So it's going. So it doesn't sound as cool. Notice that. I'm gonna try this one. So here's going. So that sounds kind of cool, but so what we're going to do with this pattern is, before I was kind of doing the 3 and then the 5, but this now I'm just going to keep doing 5 over and over again, like that same loop where it's just going. So 1, 2, 3. So wait, chirp, chirp, chirp. All right, so that's the first one. That's 3, and then chirp, 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 chirp. Release, and then right, and then we do the loop all over again. So fast. Alright, so that one doesn't sound that good when it's going fast. It's like you don't hear really what's going on. It just sounds kind of cloudy. Alright, so let's see what this one sounds like. Alright, so sounds alright. So alright, now we'll go faster. Alright. See, See, this one might work better because it's a lot more of a rounder sound. So let's say. Alright, so. See how this one sounds a lot better. So notice how when you have a space between a kick and a snare, like how there's no, like how, so here's the start of the kick. You see how there's no sound at the beginning, and then you get the kick and it's short, and then there's a space after it. See, there's no space there. So when you have a nice kick with no with space at the front and the back of it, it sounds much better, and your chirps are much clearer. And for all the Kickstarter supporters, you know, we're going to drop this, you know, 7-inch soon this year, and you know, all the sounds are going to have, you know, little spaces in between, because one of my pet peeves as far as battle records is when the sounds are too many sounds are overlapping, because you know it sounds a lot crisper when you're doing chirps and stuff like that when the sounds aren't overlapping. You know, like how this one is. So you notice how those other kicks and snares, those clear live drums and stuff like that, that had a lot of some reverb and stuff overlapping, it's not as crisp. But this sounds way more crisp. So let's see what happens if we go fast. I still like that percolator sound the best, because when you start going really fast, it just sounds, it has all these weird nuanced variations that you hear, and it sounds all bubbly. But this, you know, this one's cool too. But try another sound. Alright, so yeah, this one's like from a live song, you can tell, so it's like, it just sounds real cloudy. See, there's not a space before, it's merging, it's overlapping with the sound before it. There's no like real defined space, so it's not going to sound as good. So alright, so I don't like how that sounds as much as the other one. So let's see this one. This one's a lot more rounder, this kick. Yeah, that one, I don't like how that sounds. For that particular sound, I like these kicks, but just for this pattern, the other kick sounds cooler to me. So this is a real bassy, sub-bassy one, so, right? See, how are we doing on time? Oh, 26 minutes. might sound cool because it's an electric kick. So see, that sounds a lot doper to me. So notice the difference. It's like an electronic kick, right? It's just a lot. You can hear it a lot more. You can hear the nuances of the kick a lot more than those other live drums. So let's see what happens if I go faster. So I like how that sounded better, right? Those two ones I did a little variation of that pattern, but as long as you're doing a bunch of chirps, you can have that double time kind of double time kind of sound, you know, because it's going double, so it's going. So it's going chirp, 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 release, chirp, 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 release. Chirp, 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 kick snare. Chirp, 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 kick snare. But in that example, those chirps turned to stabs because I was trying to speak it and scratch at the same time. So these are chirps. So you want to practice these. You want to practice your chirps. See how fast you can go. Now, before you start doing all the chirp variations and all the modulation styles of chirps, you want to be able to control your regular chirps first, like what I'm doing right now. And these are like equally sized chirps, and they're very uniform. So you want to practice being able to be uniform before you start trying to modulate stuff. So. So you see some of those chirps starting to get to that kind of modulation mode where it sounds like variations. So you want to be able to just continuously practice those chirps. So, alright, so it's going chirp, 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 kick snare, chirp, 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 kick snare. snare. So let's go back to the other one, because that snare is really big and chunky. You'll see this other one is a lot lighter. See, it's a lot lighter and faster. See, right? So you can do a lot more with it. See how different it is? See this? So we're gonna keep staying on this one, so because it sounds way sick when you go fast with it. And for the Kickstarter supporters, the Battle Record is definitely going to have the percolator sounds on it. Percolator sounds, almond drums, a lot of classic stuff. Probably going to throw Good Times on there. Maybe Bad Meaning Bad, all that stuff. So. So, what we just did is basically this, if I'm dividing this in half, let's say, right? And then go like this, we'll make a little, another axis, right? So this is Y, this is the X axis, right? Got that? Okay. Now we're going to cut this in half again. Cut this in half again. So in most down-tempo music, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's a snare, there's a release, right? There's a snare and a snare right there. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. Bada boom. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? That's clear. Now we're going to add it's going to be diva kick snare. So there's chirp, 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 kick snare. Alright, so we're going to get more detailed. Great. We're going to make these. So before these were quarter notes, now these are going to be eighth notes. This is 1 bar. This is 1 bar. Alright. So this is going to go diva 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 ch. Diva 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 ch. You know? Right there. There we go. So we know that this is going to be a release on this. It's a 16th note. Right, so we have those are 8ths, now these are 16ths. And this is going to go doom 16th note kick snare. So let's say that this is the kick. This is the snare. Right. And we're gonna say this. So this is like right here. This is going kick snare. Right. It's gonna be like that. So it's gonna be it's coming from a chirp. Continuous chirps. It's gonna be like that. So it's kick snare. So it's going dova 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 kick snare. So it's going. See that it's going. This is a chirp. All chirps. Yeah, this should be right here actually. Let's do that. Fix that a little bit. Alright, look at that. So, dova, dova. So these are three chirps. Dova, 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 kick snare. Alright. And we have a rest at this, but this is going to be, we had 3 here, then we had 5 here generally. This whole loop that we were focused on for the whole time. Alright, so this is going dova, 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 kick snare. Dova, 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 kick snare. It's going dova, 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 kick snare. So we know that this, we can go by the snare. Alright. So we're going to cut these up. Alright, so we cut these up. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, oops, 17. Something's wrong over here. But basically, kick snare. So the snare's right here. I'll mark that a little bit more stronger so you can see it more. Whoops, it's this one. Alright, it's this one. Just make that one the same. That's like how the snare is. We know that kick snare. Snares always fall in there. Kick snare. Okay. So it's gonna be the same thing. This one I'm gonna. That's kick snare, right? Let's just say it was off. Starts off. Kick snare. All right. So this one. And there's 5 of them, so we know there's going to be 2 more. Alright, so it's going dova, 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 kick snare, dova, 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 kick snare, dova, 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 kick snare, dova, 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 kick snare, dova, 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 kick snare, dova, 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 kick snare, dova, 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 kick snare, dova, 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 kick snare. Alright. Do that, move it like that. Let's see, so I'm just going to do that here. Just the marker. Alright, so it's going to go. So it's going to go. Stab on one of those, you know, so sometimes messed up, you do a stab, but yeah, that's it right there. So this is just, you You know, you could call this like abbreviation of this would be like 3 chirp, 1 eighth note quarter, right? 16th note rest, and then plus 5 chirps, plus, you know, eighth note, you know, forward, and then the rest. So this is one, like, alright. So this is the kick, and this is the snare. This is and then the snare is right here.